hereby call to order the North Suburban Communications Commission meeting for Thursday, December 6, 2018. Would you call the roll, please?
Arden Hills,
Craig Wilson.
Vulcan Heights, Sue Majerus, Lauderdale, Little Canada,
Rick Montour.
Mounds View,
Bill Bergeron.
New Brighton,
Emily Dunsworth.
North Oaks,
Sarah Shaw.
Roseville,
Dan Rowe.
and St. Anthony.
We have a quorum?
We have a quorum with 2 absent.
All right, thank you. I should say that the commission was established by a joint powers agreement among the 9 member cities for the purpose of jointly administering and enforcing the cable franchise agreements between the cable service provider and the 9 cities. This is an open public meeting subject to the same statutory requirements as a meeting of the City Council of any member city. Public participation is encouraged, and the members of the public may address the commission either in the public forum or as an agenda item is considered upon recognition of the chair. All participants and attendees are expected to do so in a respectful and courteous manner. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is public forum, and I don't believe we have anybody here for public forum. I will just make a note for anybody who might be paying attention that although we show public forum on the agenda for our corporation meeting, the second meeting this evening, that is by the previous vote of the commission many years ago, not the way we do it. We just have the one public forum at the start of this meeting, so if you were hoping to make comment in public forum, you may have to rush right over, but anyway, this is your opportunity. We don't have anyone here right now. Next would be approval of tonight's agenda. I would note, I believe we need to make an adjustment to tonight's agenda to include under general business an item for the treasurer's report. So I would suggest that we add items, well, insert item 7A, the treasurer's report, and change item A, the meeting dates, to item B.
With that change, I will move the agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda with that amendment of adding the treasurer's report under business item section 7. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda this evening. Next is consideration of the minutes. We have the minutes of our October meeting in the packet. I didn't see any changes myself. Were there any corrections noted by anyone? Otherwise, a motion to approve the minutes of our October meeting would be in order.
Move approval of the October 2018 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of our October meeting. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our minutes. That brings us then to reports, and our first report this evening is from Dana Healy, our Executive Director.
Thank you. So for my Executive Director's report, we did have 3 cable complaints. They were all in November. Tickets were all opened and tickets were all closed. So that's resolved. Regarding cable updates, Comcast reported beginning on December 3rd that 25 channels will be added to their Xfinity Instant TV Latino genre pack, and the letter regarding that change is included. Effective January 1st, Fuse will no longer be available. That letter is also included. And in December, Xfinity TV channels will be offered Afro, CeeLo TV, and I-24 News, Newsmax TV, and that's also attached with a detailed letter. And there's a general reminder issued from Comcast that customers' bills and notice that they maintain an updated website and toll-free number to reflect the programming contracts that are set to expire in the coming months. So, so people can get that information on their website for any ongoing changes. We had a city admin meeting on Wednesday, December 5th. We were going over policies and procedures and talking about things related to underwriting and sponsorship, as well as the details of the neighborhood network. And that was this week, so I do not have any minutes regarding that right now. But that is all I have for my report.
All right. Are there any questions for Dana on the Executive Director report this evening? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to the attorney report. And Mr. Bradley, I think this is probably the highlight of our evening this evening, right? So
How sad.
I'll turn it over to you. Well, the highlight of the meeting, anyway.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
not our
yes.
evening.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody, and happy holidays. This is our last meeting of the year. So, yes, you might recall that at your last meeting, we discussed an FCC notice of proposed rulemaking in which the FCC was proposing to add a new rule that would change how franchise fees are defined under the federal law. And the result of that would mean a decrease in franchise fees to all of the member cities. And the estimated amount of reduction was 20 to 30% of your franchise fee. You authorized our firm to submit comments on your behalf, and we did that. And I believe that's in your packet, probably made for good bedtime reading, but it's, we obviously spent a lot of time on it, and we thought it was a very important issue, particularly for this organization. And I think the comments reflected that seriousness, to be honest with you. We ended up joining a group of a number of municipal entities, and we ended up having cities from, I think, 5 or 6 states, and we had the largest cities from probably about 4 of them. So some of the cities that were in our group was the city of Philadelphia, the city of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, the city of Minneapolis, the city of Sioux Falls, and then a number of the cable commissions here in the Twin Cities, a number of cities in Wisconsin, and a city in Iowa, so and a couple of cities in Washington State actually as well. So I think we had a really strong showing in our comments as far as the number of cities that were participating. The number of citizens that were represented in that filing was almost 4 million people.
Wow.
So it was a significant group that we put together. We put together a summary, which I believe is also in your packet, so you can kind of, it'll save you the reading of 60 pages of comments. But you'll see that there was 3 main issues, but the principal issue that we really focused on was the proposed rule to determining what a franchise fee is. And under federal law right now, and federal law hasn't changed in 34 years, by the way, under the Cable Act, to be a franchise fee, it needs to be a tax, a fee, or an assessment that's imposed on a cable operator. The FCC had taken the position that it wanted to issue a rule that what they call in-kind provisions in cable franchises, which would be access channels, institutional networks. One commenter for the industry even suggested that building out beyond the minimum build-out requirements under FCC rules would constitute in-kind consideration. All of those things would be reduced from the franchise fee because in the FCC's tentative conclusion, that's an assessment that's made on a cable operator. So what we argued is that there was no reason to promulgate a rule under this provision of the Cable Act because the Cable Act is very clear on what a franchise fee is. It needs to be a tax, a fee, or an assessment. And just by the plain definition of assessment, which really means something like a unilateral imposition of a tax or some sort of monetary fee, that language is clear. And so there's no reason to promulgate a rule when the language is clear. So that was part of our argument. Then we went over the legislative history of that particular section of the Cable Act. And when you look at the legislative history plainly states that a franchise fee is a monetary charge. Well, these in-kind assessments or these in-kind considerations are not that. Right? So they're not a monetary charge. It's something that's negotiated and provided for under a cable franchise. So we talked about the legislative history not supporting the FCC's determination. Then we also went into some, we added in a constitutional argument that this would be a taking of property of local governments, because all of this was negotiated over a period of time, and they would be taking away that consideration. Then we went into some alternative arguments as to why it would really be against public policy to adopt a rule like that. And part of our argument there was that the way the FCC was proposing to promulgate this rule, it would allow a cable operator to essentially double, triple, quadruple recover their cost for providing this consideration. So for example, if an institutional network cost $5,000 to build, under the proposed rule, the FCC would allow the cable operator to cover the fair market value of that network today. Well, that's very different than the cost, right? That would be an annual or monthly or annual ongoing cost that they'd be able to continue to reduce from your franchise fee over and over and over again. And so that, we think, would result in double or triple recovery. In addition, we also noted that all of these franchising costs are already either embedded in cable rates via another provision of the Cable Act, or through a line item charge on cable subscriber bills. And so in a lot of instances, particularly in our case, where the institutional network that we used to have, and to some extent still do under our new franchise, all of those costs had been recovered plus interest for years. And certainly it doesn't make any sense to allow cable operators to double and triple recover those costs. So that gives you a little bit of a flavor of the approach that we took on opposing the FCC's tentative conclusions in its notice of proposed rulemaking. There was two other issues that we also addressed. One involved mixed-use networks and whether or not the Cable Act preempts local governments from regulating other services that are provided over a cable system. And we argued that the Cable Act certainly does not preempt local government from doing so. And then finally, there was a third rule that sought to preempt state laws related to cable and other services. And again, we argued that the FCC had no authority to preempt those laws either. All of those comments were submitted on December 14th. There was a number of industry comments that were filed, three main ones that we're focusing on, and we're in the process of putting together reply comments now. The reply comments will be quite a bit shorter than, you'll be happy to know. They're quite a bit shorter than the initial comments, but we're really focusing in on particularly what the cable industry said, but we're also looking at other comments that were favorable to our position, and we're including those as additional support for what we put in our initial comments. The reply comments are due on December 14th, which is a week from this Friday, and we're well on our way to having that done. Our goal is to have a draft of our reply comments sent out to our clients for review by the end of the day tomorrow, and then get those comments back to the extent they're provided. And then we'll continue to draft, and then probably Wednesday, close of business Wednesday, we'll send out a more final looking draft, and then get comments back again, and then file them on Friday. It's nice nowadays we can e-file them, so it's we can file them on the date they're actually due. And that's it. It's not a particularly exciting report. It's not great. It's not great news really for local governments as far as what the FCC is proposing to do, but it certainly has the attention of a lot of folks. There was a lot of comments issued. I don't have the exact number, but a number of franchising authorities have participated, which is very positive, I think, for this proceeding. But I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any other questions unrelated to the comments, I'm happy to answer those too.
Maybe before I recognize members for questions, one question I had in terms of the process going forward, is there a time frame for once there's the reply comments are in for when the final decision happens?
Good
and what the
question.
process might be after that in terms of dealing with any rule?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the answer is there really isn't a deadline for the FCC to take action. The FCC's been acting quickly on a lot of these different dockets, much faster than previous FCC groups. So we don't know exactly when they might act. I would guess it would take about 6 months probably before, kind of at a minimum, for them to get through all the comments and put together an order. But that's really just a guess as far as when they might do it. There's no, they could wait 8 years to do it, and even in this particular proceeding, has been going on in some form since 2006. And at one time, they had a request for reconsideration in front of them for about 8 years. So there's a little bit of an unknown there as to when they might act, but it's a good question.
So if an order does come down middle of next year or whenever it might be, is there an appeal process of any sort, or what can entities like us do in terms of trying to continue to fight such an order if we feel it's appropriate?
Yeah, assuming that it's a negative order that comes out of the FCC, that order can be appealed. It would be appealed to the Court of Appeals. Likely, a stay would be requested, meaning everything would be put on hold. That stay request has to go first to the FCC. The FCC decides if they want to voluntarily stay the proceeding. If that doesn't happen, then the Court of Appeals would be asked to stay the proceeding. If that doesn't happen, then the order goes into effect on the effective date that's set forth in the order, and then the appeal process still goes along with it.
All right, thank you.
Which would likely take a couple of years, I'm guessing.
Right. I appreciate members indulging those questions. Hopefully I didn't step on anyone's toes in the questions they were going to ask, but I'll recognize members for any questions. Mr. Montour.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, as cable commissioners and representatives in our communities, what can we do to, I guess, we've already provided comments, but should we contact our congressmen and our senators and voice our concerns? Would that be of any value?
Mr. Chair and Commission Directors, I think it would be good to coordinate that effort through your Executive Director and maybe through MACTA.
Okay.
But that makes a lot of sense. In fact, some United States senators and some Congress members have already written to the chair of the FCC indicating their disapproval of the FCC's proposed actions.
Okay.
And just so the group knows, I have sent copies of those letters to the MACTA board, and I've suggested that would be a good idea. MACTA
Okay.
does have a paid lobbyist, so, and we, through our membership fees, we support that, so it would make some sense to use that resource.
All right. Other questions? All right, so reasonably speaking, this is not necessarily a January 1st impact on potentially on cities' franchise fees, but certainly on the near horizon potentially.
A concern for sure.
Yeah, all right. Very good. Appreciate that. If there's no further questions, then we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is cable company reports, and I don't see any representatives of either of the cable companies here this evening for reports. So we'll move to general business, and as we noted during the approval of the agenda, we inserted the consideration of the financial statements under general business as the first item. So I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Mr. Jarvis.
So I'm going to break it into 3 parts. So first of all, I'd like to move approval for the 2018 financial report and summary ending September of 2018. For that current month, we had revenues of $596.38. We had operating expenditures of $19,441.93. And note that there's no account registration transactions for this month.
Oh,
All right, is there a second to the motion to accept that September treasurer's report?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Madam Treasurer?
Move approval to the 2018 financial report ending October 31st, 2018, with revenues of $652.94. Total operating expenses is $25,353.31.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Montour. And for discussion, I would just note that in both of these reports, at least on the commission side of things, our revenues are in excess of our operating expenditures, so we are netting into our account so far this year. I think we're slightly above anticipated revenues in our budget on that side, and I believe we're below anticipated expenses. So that's pretty favorable for the organization, I'd say. Any additional discussion on the motion to accept the October financial report? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. And then I believe there is a
Yep.
expense report or a
Yep.
check
And then,
register report.
and then lastly, move approval to the account register for the month of October. The checking account was $27,447.10. And that's it, sorry.
There were just two.
There was no,
items.
there was no credit cards, yeah.
All right. Is there a second to the motion to accept the account register for October?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bergeron. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have, I believe, handled all of our financial items. That brings us to our second item under business, which is consideration of a proposed meeting schedule for 2019. And I believe, Dana, this is your item?
Sure, yes. So I'm proposing 10 meeting dates for 2019. I know this is a little more than what we've had in 2018, but we do have quite a few agenda items to get looked at and voted on moving forward. So for your consideration.
All right, and the meeting dates are as presented in the packet. Are there any questions for staff on the proposed meeting dates as presented, or any conflicts? Member Majerus?
I just assume the same time,
7.
7 o'clock? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion relative to the proposed meeting dates for 2019?
I'll make a motion. I'll approve the 2019 North Suburban Communication Commission meeting dates as presented.
Second.
All right, seconded by Majerus. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I should have asked if there was any discussion, but I didn't hear any opposed, so I think we're good. All right, that brings us then to the end of our agenda for this evening on the commission. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I'll call to order the North Suburban Access Corporation meeting for Thursday, December 6, 2018, and ask the Secretary Treasurer to call the roll, please.
Arden Hills,
Craig Wilson.
Falcon Heights, Sue Majerus. Lauderdale, Little Canada,
Rick Montour.
Mounds View,
Bill Bergeron.
New Brighton,
Emily Dunsworth.
North Oaks,
Sarah Shaw.
Roseville,
Dan Rowe?
and St. Anthony. We have a quorum chair with 2 absent.
All right, thank you. And I should say the Access Corporation was established by the North Suburban Communications Commission as a separate and distinct nonprofit corporation for the purpose of managing and operating the community access programming channels, equipment, and facilities resulting from the existence of the cable franchise agreements of the 9 member cities. This is also an open and public meeting subject to the same statutory requirements as a meeting of City Council of a member city, and respectful and courteous public participation is encouraged upon recognition of the board president. That brings us to consideration of the agenda for this evening. I would note, as I stated earlier, the public forum is by previous action of the commission and corporation only held during the commission meeting, so there is no public forum on the agenda. Otherwise, I don't believe there are any changes to the agenda as presented.
Can we add announcements to the end?
We can certainly do that before adjournment.
Thank you.
All right, we'll add announcements. Are there any
I don't wanna be out
other
of order.
changes or additions? No, I appreciate that. All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda then as amended to eliminate the public forum and add announcements?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Member Wilson, seconded by Member Majerus. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda. That then brings us to consideration of the minutes, and I believe we do have the minutes of our October Access Corporation meeting in the packet. And are there any changes or corrections that need to be made at this time? All right, otherwise a motion to approve as presented would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Majerus, seconded by, or excuse me, moved by Montour, seconded by Majerus, by a hair. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our minutes for this evening, or for our last meeting, I should say. I'm just noticing now that I took up the agenda earlier than the agenda said it was supposed to be taken up. I think we need to move that earlier in the agenda, because that's now, otherwise. That brings us to reports. Our first report would be from our Executive Director, Dana Healy. Dana.
Thank you. So for my report that I have today, we have been working diligently on the employee handbook. And I just want to say thank you to David so much for the amount of work that we've been able to put into it. We will be having a first read for you for next meeting. And we've also been working with our HR consultant, Arlene Vernon, on that as well. So thanks to her. We had our town hall open forum last night. So we had a great mix of volunteers, residents, also non-JPA residents, commission members, as well as producers that just submit their content onto our cable channels. So we had a great mix of people with a lot of different questions, a lot of different concerns. But one thing that we're sure of is 2019 will be a transition year. And it's all about communication, so I do think it's going to be beneficial for us to have another one of those town hall forums as we move forward with the different changes that we are implementing. So following that, service agreements, all the cities have gotten their service agreements regarding our municipal productions, webcasting, cablecasting, as well as social media if they're interested in social media coordination. So those are starting to boomerang back around with changes and tweaks, so I'm hoping that we'll have them all in hand and signed by January. So the next big project that we've been taking on is a complete website redesign on WordPress. So included in my report are some design concepts. I think you can see them on page 10. They're not so good if you print them out because they're pretty large format. Found that out the hard way. But the design concepts that Mr. Pete Fabian has been developing for us, they're beautiful. They have a new palette and new colors that we've been working with. And we're really keeping the user experience in mind in the forefront. So residents that want to go and find the certain meetings, find the baseball games, we're keeping that in the front end of how we are designing everything. Secondarily, we want to make it as easy of a platform to generate production for hire, sponsorship, and that alternative revenue that we're looking to bolster our coffers with. So following that, I also included a staff meeting PowerPoint that we had recently. And what it does is it laid out 2019, the events that we're expecting to do throughout the year. I'm a big fan of planning, and these poor guys, they know now. So we're plotting out all of our efforts throughout the year. And and this is like the overarching, very broad strokes of it in that PowerPoint. For our next meeting, I will have a full marketing plan with our strategies and action items ready for you, for your review. Following that, our policies and procedures. So the policies and procedures is still in the beginning stages, and this was something that came up at our town hall forum yesterday. So although we have the general, I'd like to say, compass of where we're going, we don't have that map to really help us get there. And that's what those policies and procedures are gonna be. And they're not something that needs to be, that has to be done haphazardly. I really do want to make sure that we delve into legal aspects and we delve in all the way down to the volunteer level. So I did ask if there was any volunteers that would be interested in having a focus group to be able to look at the policies to see if, because when we're creating policy on the higher level, we may lose sight of how it's going to impact everybody all the way down. So once we get a few iterations of those policies down, I'm going to invite that focus group in to take a look at it if that is the will of the commission. So regarding that, that is my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dana? Report, Member Majerus.
I like your forward thinking of laying out the January through December. And as you kind of come with the new update and more details, make sure you include action items for us, because I think we could definitely, I think, no different than when all of a sudden you had the volunteer spotlight or the nonprofit organizations. I think what we should be able to be providing you should be helpful too.
That's a great suggestion, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, other thoughts or questions? I don't want to limit it to questions.
I think it's excuse me.
Sure.
I think it's a really great plan for 2019. I agree 2019 is going to be a transition year. We're really going to have our feet on the ground come October, November of next year, I believe.
I think that's true, and I hopefully, as things move through that transition, people's comfort level at various levels, whether they're volunteers, producers, staff, commission members, whoever it is, that everybody's comfort level will increase through the process, and by the time we get to that time frame, it'll be like second nature to all of us, and make a lot of sense at that point.
Great.
So appreciate that, and I think, as you were saying, Dana, communication is definitely key to the process, so whatever we can do to enhance that, not a bad idea.
Absolutely, thank
All
you.
right, great. Appreciate that. All right, we'll go to our next report, which is our production report with Mr. Domke.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'll start us off with really with the change in staff and policies and everything. We put together our very first big production in Show Us Your Nonprofit. We brought in 20 nonprofit groups for a 2-hour live event, and it was a lot of fun. It was a party atmosphere, and I thought it went really well. There were a couple of kinks. I won't say it was perfect, but they're certainly fixable. So we're ready for next year. I've got my playbook almost done, as I get reminded from Dana to keep working on that.
Well, the glitches weren't technical. We could blame Pat.
Right, and he'll be up next to talk
Right.
about those.
Yeah.
No, so it's just minor things that we can just deal with, like more, one of the big things I thought, and I really hadn't thought about it, was the talent or the guests coming in. One was telling us how they froze up because they didn't realize 2 sets were going to be there, and people would be milling about. They thought, a one-on-one intimate setting, but it was chaos. And that's the way I like it, though. It's a lot of fun that way. So a little bit of more education to the talent and to the guests. Let's see. We also brought in about $700 to $800 of revenue from this event. We hope to get 4 to 5 more productions. Afterwards, I went and met with a bunch of the with those that wanted to sign on for more meetings, and it was very interesting to meet them up close and with more time, because it was, again, crazy that night. So it was nice to get to know more about them, and so I'm hoping that we're going to get 4 to 5 more continued productions from this. We did a Shop Small First event similar to Show Us Your Nonprofit, where you get 5 minutes to talk about your business and what makes you special. And that one, we had 5 to 6 businesses show up. That was a shorter window that we were working out of, but we knew with the small business event coming up for shopping, we thought we'd try to squeeze one in there. So learned from it. I think we have a nice system down for future events like this now. So that's more of the benefit, I think, at the early parts of these, learning how to put these together. We finished up the Ramsey County Library sessions called Tuesday with a Scholar. That was a 10-program run that they had funded, and so we finished that up. A lot of great speakers, so just keep checking on our website for the archived versions and check them all out because they're very good. Again, very busy with other media. Sports was doing well again tonight. Roseville and Mounds View are live on our channels and playing some hockey. And so we just continue doing business. That's what I have.
All right. Are there questions or feedback for Tim on his report? Mr. Bergeron.
Tim, I just want to say to you and Dana and the whole staff, Pat and everyone, I was here for the Show Us Your Nonprofit.
Okay.
And from everything I heard from the people that came in and went out, other than the fact that they were nervous coming in and relieved coming out, was what a tremendous night it was. That they thought it was great. It sure didn't look like there were too many glitches from where I stood. Mm-hmm. And speaking to a couple of people that watched it, I don't think they saw too many glitches. So you did a good job of showing well. And I think that was a very excellent idea and very well received in the communities.
Thank you. We have a program coming out live next week. More details, we'll post it on our Facebook page, so watch for it. But it's about suicide, and Coming Out of Darkness is the name of the organization. And she was really excited about her 5 minutes and wanted to continue her television work. So we got that right away, and I look forward to that. That's going to be a great, she's got wonderful contacts, so it's going to be a great program. So more information on that. It'll be live for a half hour.
Excellent. Thanks. Any other questions or feedback for Mr. Dunn? Thank you very much for your report. That brings us to our, speaking of technical services report, we have Pat Cook here this evening for that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things relating to our Rasmussen interns. One is that unfortunately we are losing one. He's graduating, so we are looking at getting some additional folks in. But he's Cheng Tao has been doing a great job for us. In fact, he's taking care of this meeting on the website right now for us, so that's great. And I also wanted to give Wade and Long, a couple of our other interns, some credit. They've been working really hard on swapping computer parts and that. So we've been recycling computers, computers that we've gotten from donated or other places, and really helping us, save some money. Because if we can, like anything, if we can repair a drive or replace something, it really works out well. And we're using those as carousels for the city bulletin boards and other bulletin boards, which is a savings for the cities. So that's I wanted to give them a shout out for that. And then finally, I wanted to say, and you saw it in my written report, and as I keep talking about these city upgrades, but we're excited about it. New Brighton, we're on the ground. The council chambers, we just hauled over a truckload of equipment earlier today, and the council chambers they're finishing up the ceiling and putting in all the wires, and we'll be there later this week and next week to hook up the equipment. We'll have a council meeting or a meeting in the room. I'm not sure if it's a council meeting next week, and it'll happen, that's for sure. Not sure if it'll be completely done, but one of the things again that we bring is the ability to maintain that continuity, so we don't have to worry about that. But we're excited about that. It's always fun to have new equipment and install new equipment, and I think folks in New Brighton will appreciate it. I took some pictures of what we tore out, and Andre Barte, a longtime friend of CTV and staff member there, had quite the setup in there, and it's sort of amazing because you look at what was there in the new equipment, how much space it takes up, and how much power it'll use, and it will just be so much less, but look and do so much more. So we're excited about that, and I wanted to share that. So that's what I had, unless there are questions.
Any questions or comments for Pat? I just have to say a special thanks to Pat for, I think it was our last council meeting or the one before that, where
Oh.
we had a little bit of a glitch with the scheduling of the person to come and staff the meeting at City Hall. And Pat was able to get things started for us remotely and get us on our feet and going. We really do appreciate that. There was a lot
Yeah.
of head scratching going on as to how that evening was going to go. Because now that I think about it, I think that was our Truth and Taxation meeting.
Right.
So we're really, really grateful for all the great work that you did, and on the spur of the moment, able to make
Thank
things
you.
happen for us.
You know,
So
that's one of the things we've trying to build, some flexibility. Yeah, so once we realized it, from my desk, I was both making calls to get an operator there, but also was running the cameras remotely, which is something we've built into these new setups so that we have that flexibility. We're not quite there to say that we're all going to do all the meetings all the time remotely, but at least if we need to, we can. So,
No, that was great.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again. Any other questions or comments for Pat? All right, thanks so much. That then brings us to our treasurer's reports for September and October, and I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Ms. Majerus.
So I have 4 parts, starting out with move approval to the 2018 financial report summary for 9 months ending September 30th, 2018, with total revenues of, for the current month, $196,565.51, and the total operating expenses is $103,178.19.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to accept the financial report for the 9 months ending September 30th, 2018. Any questions or discussion on the motion? And once again, I'll just note, maybe I'll note it for October. Never mind.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's all right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That report is accepted. Ms. Majerus.
The next is move approval of the account register for the month of September, which includes $99,986.04, which was for the checking account. And the credit card, tell me, it looks like there's 2 totals for the credit card. I didn't have a chance to ask beforehand, but it looks like the credit card has a total of $2,262.29. And then there's another separate page of another total of $1,023.89.
What
that
you're
correct?
seeing there is what was on the bill, reconciling to the bill. That's the first total.
Okay.
And the second total is charges that were made, but no statement has been received yet.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So move approval of the account registers between the credit cards and the checking account.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the account registers for the checking and credit card as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Ms. Majerus.
Once again, move approval of the 2018 financial report summary for the end of October 31st with the current revenues of $14,934.27 and our operating expenses of minus 61,000.
No, 76.
Oh, sorry, round totals. 76,702.54.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, seconded by Mr. Bergeron. And this is where I was just going to note that we are about $100,000 behind our budgeted revenue for year-to-date through October, and it seems like a big chunk of that is related to the Comcast PEG fees, which is a trend I think we want to keep our eyes on. Luckily, I think we're also behind budget a little bit on expenses, so we're not quite creating as much red ink, but I think we knew that this year was going to be a bit of a deficit spending, and we also knew that there were some changes that came about in the middle of the year with personnel changes and things like that that you know, made that a little tougher. But I think we're looking like we're doing pretty well. But you know, just like I said, those cable revenues seem to be going down, so something to keep an eye on. Hopefully, that's not a permanent trend. Are there any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And on the account register, Ms. Majerus.
And lastly, move approval of the account register for the month of October. For the checking account, it is $102,248.09. And for the credit card, it's $3,363.44.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Montour. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those financial reports are approved. No other general business this evening. We do have an item added for announcements. Mr. Montour?
Thank you. Just to remind it, today is December 6th. If you're available, this Saturday is Cookies with Santa at Little Kansas City Hall. Saturday from 1 to 3. So bring your kids, grandkids, friends, family, come to Little Kansas City Hall for Cookies with Santa. Also, Little Canada is a Toys for Tots drop-off point, so if you want to bring a toy with, you're more than welcome.
Anywhere in Little Canada in particular?
It's City Hall.
Oh, okay.
City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Other announcements this evening? All right, and we don't really have a crew introduction that I'm aware of. I think it's a skeleton crew this evening, and they don't want any recognition. So, so we thank them anyway. With that, the last item on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Happy holidays, everyone.